I feel like the timer should have music. Okay, welcome. Go ahead, we're actually going to start lying down today. So one, we are using props, so if you have a couple blocks in the strap, go ahead and grab them. Two, have them someplace where you can grab them lying down. And then come to lying on your back. And just here, your knees can be bent, the feet can be on the ground, or your legs can be straight if that feels better for you. One hand, the right hand to the belly, the left hand to the heart. Let the eyes be soft or closed. And just when you feel comfortable, when you feel ready, let yourself settle into the flow of the breath. And just letting your breath begin to lengthen and deepen. And with every exhale, just let yourself settle into the support of the earth a little bit more. So let yourself feel held here. And let yourself release as you connect to your breath. And with every exhale, letting go a little bit more. As you continue to settle into the flow of the breath, you can let the breath begin to lengthen and deepen, balancing out the inhales and the exhales. And again, with that exhale, just continuing to settle, to melt, to release. With every inhale, just filling yourself up from inside out, letting yourself be nourished. And as you do that, notice that maybe you can feel the vertebrae of the spine just lengthening a bit away from each other, creating some space there. And just feeling the breath move through you. Letting the breath move you. So, today, since it's just a few days after the winter solstice, which often is celebrated as the return of light or with light, I wanted to have a class focused on just letting the light come back in a little bit. But I think what happens a lot in our society, in our culture, we like to go from 0 to 100. And so today's class is going to be about easing into things, about moving slowly, not hurrying, and just letting that light come back in, but again, not just like a flashlight is turning on, but like the amount of time it takes between the solstice and the spring equinox. So again, just letting yourself be here. And you can even think of this as being still in the darkness. So as the solstice is a return of light, you can think of this as still being in the darkness as you breathe. And just being held by the darkness. So the darkness not as something to be afraid of, but as a space you're in that holds you, that you rest in, that you sleep in. Like the night, a restful, peaceful night, or like the womb. But someplace again that is dark but comforting. And then as you're ready from here, you can gently let the eyes open a little bit. And again, give yourself a time just to take in the light as your eyes gently open, keeping them a bit soft, the eyes, the gaze soft. And then from here, go ahead and open your arms into an airplane position. So palms can be facing up. Open your feet as wide apart as your mat. And have the feet a bit away from the hips. And then from here, with your next exhale, let the knees drop over to the right side. Inhale up to center. And exhale the knees to the left side. Windshield wipers. Inhale to center. Exhale the knees to the right side. Inhale to center. Exhale the knees to the left side. Inhale up to center. Exhale the knees to the right side. Holding your knees on the right side. With your feet nice and wide apart, stretch the left knee towards the front of the mat. You might even take the right foot on top of the left thigh here. And then if you want to, you can keep your hands here if this feels better for your shoulders, your arms here, Or if you'd like to, you can stretch the arms back for the wall behind you, which sometimes just intensifies a little bit that stretch to the left side of the low back this pose often offers. But breathing wherever you're at, noticing how you feel. And then with your next inhale, back to center, arms can come back to airplane, legs, knees can point up to the sky, feet about hip distance or about mat distance width apart. Maybe centering your hips if they moved a little bit, and then exhale, knees over to the left side, stretching the right knee towards the front of the mat. Again, if you'd like to, you can take the left foot on top of the right thigh. If you want to, you can stretch your arms back for the wall behind you, breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then as you're ready, coming back into center here, knees pointing back up to the sky. Now feet about hip distance width apart. And with your feet about hip distance width apart, go ahead and cross your right ankle over the left knee. Stretching to the inner edge of your right ankle, bring both hands to your thighs and just gently press the thighs away from you. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then inhale, go ahead, releasing that right leg, right foot to the ground, crossing the left ankle over the right knee, stretching to the inner edge of the ankle, both hands to your thighs, and gently pressing the thighs away from you here. Feeling a little bit of length in the low back, letting the breath flow through you. And then exhale, go ahead and release here. Uncross this left leg, maybe grab a block, the narrowest width, and put the block between your knees and let your feet open nice and wide apart. They might even open a bit wider apart than your mat, depending on how you feel. Holding the block in between the knees here. And just letting the arms come back into an airplane position here. And feel the natural curves of the spine. So as you're here, feel the hips nice and heavy and evenly weighted between the right and the left side on the earth. Feel the low back right above the hips lifting up a little bit. There's a little arch there. You can slide a hand underneath it if you wanted to. Feel the shoulders nice and heavy on the earth. Feel the neck lifting up a little bit. There's a little bit of an arch there. Feel the back of your head nice and heavy on the ground. Chin in neutral or slightly lifted. Breathe. Just letting the breath flow through you here. And then from here, go ahead and take the block out from between the knees. Let your feet come about to hip distance width apart. Knees pointing up to the sky, just noticing how you feel. Grab a strap if you have one. And again, you don't necessarily need a strap for this. I often like to double up straps. It just makes it easy for me to grab them. You can do that if you like. And you can also use towels or other things instead of straps. Straps are easy to replace. And then from here, when you feel ready, bend the right knee, take the strap maybe around the shin, and pull the right knee in toward you here. The reason I like to use straps sometimes instead of hands is I feel when I press my leg out into the strap, for some reason for me it just feels a little bit differently than using my hand. So go ahead, press your leg out into the strap, feel the natural curves of the spine, feel the hips nice and heavy, and then without letting the hips tuck under, go ahead and pull that leg in towards you as much as feels comfortable for you, but with resistance. So even though the form of the pose is the knee is moving in towards you, that action is you're pressing that leg out into the strap a bit. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then exhale, go ahead and release, and second side if you want to, using a strap, capturing the left shin. Press the leg out into the strap initially, well, the whole time, but especially initially. Coming to the natural curves of the spine, hips nice and heavy. And then keep the natural curves of the spine, but pull that leg in towards you if you would like. Breathing here, wherever here ends up being. And again, action is you're pressing the leg out into the strap a little bit. Form is the leg is moving in towards you, but only as much as feels good for you, and feel the breath moving through you. Also notice here it's a good place to anchor down through the shoulders and the back of the head, keeping those curves of the spine too. Breathe. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Cross the right ankle over the left knee again. Natural curves of the spine here. Lift the left leg up, this time again using your hands or the strap still, looping the strap around the left shin. And again, the same reason that sometimes I use the strap is so I can kick the leg out into the strap, really feeling those natural curves of the spine initially, and keeping those curves as I maybe even start to pull the leg in a little bit more. Breathing wherever I'm at, wherever you end up. But also, if you feel like doing the first version of this pose without lifting the left leg up at all, that is a fine option. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. And then exhale, go ahead and release, lowering the left leg to the ground and cross the right leg. Cross the left ankle over, stretching to the inner edge of the left ankle. Lift the right leg up using strap or hands, looping them around that right leg. And again, pressing the right leg out away from you. Feel the natural curves of the spine, anchoring down through both hips evenly, and keep some of that weightiness in the hips as maybe you draw the right shin closer towards, or right thigh, right leg closer and towards you. Breathe. With your next exhale, go ahead and release. Putting the strap over to the side, grab the blocks or anything that you might be using in place of blocks. And from here, feet together, knees opening wide apart, Supta Baddha Konasana, but use the blocks to support the legs. And you could do this without blocks with your legs hanging in space if you wanted to, but then I recommend a little bit more engagement, so you don't want to overstretch the groin. So if your legs aren't on anything, you might want to be a bit more active, pressing the feet in toward each other and engaging the muscles a bit more. If you have some support, you might let the legs relax entirely onto the support. And again, just arms in an airplane position, feeling the breath flowing through you in the Supta Baddha Konasana. Okay, as you're ready, coming out of this, putting the blocks back over to the side, knees bent, knees pointing up to the sky, feet about hip distance width apart. Go ahead and have the strap nearby, and when you're ready, straighten the left leg, if it works for you, along the ground, left knee and toe pointing up to the sky. Feel the natural curves of the spine, hips, shoulders, back of the head heavy, low back, neck lifting up, and anchoring down through the hips and that entire left leg if it works for you. If not, keep the left leg bent, and you'll repeat what we did a little while ago, and I think you'll see what I mean when we do what we do next. But again, if you have the strap here, and you might really want to use it this time, but again, if you don't have it, you don't have to have a strap. Go ahead, lift the right leg up, looping again the strap around that shin, pressing the shin out into the strap, feeling the natural curves of the spine, then pulling the leg in. This time, what you'll do is you'll take both ends, or maybe all four ends of the strap if you've doubled the strap up, into the right hand. And then again, once you do this, you'll press the right leg away from you a little bit more. So you'll take the right leg and press it out, really feeling those natural curves of the spine. And then the left hand can come to the left hip area. I like to do hip creases as a reminder to anchor down. And you'll engage the rest of the muscles in your body to anchor the rest of your body down, trying to keep the rest of your body relatively still. Just start to circle the right leg a little bit into the hip socket. Breathe. And if circles don't work for you, just moving the leg around a bit freely in the hip socket also is a good idea. And then you can change the direction of the leg circles, breathing here. And again, keeping the natural curves of the spine. If you'd like to, you could just pull that right leg in towards center here. Breathing, nice full deep breath. Left leg is anchoring down if it's straight, but feel free to keep that leg bent and the sole of the left foot on the ground instead if straight leg bothers your low back. And then when you're ready, go ahead and release, and second side. So bending the left knee, straighten the right leg along the ground if that works for you, knee and toe pointing toward the sky, anchoring the whole right leg down, feel the natural curves of the spine, and then taking the strap around that left shin, pressing the leg out into the strap a bit, grabbing the strap both ends with the left hand, right hand to the hip crease. And then when you're ready, using the muscles in your body to keep the rest of your body relatively still, just moving that left leg around in the hip socket. Breathe. And then changing the direction of the circles. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. And then coming into center here. And then center here again, anchoring down through the hips, the right thigh, the right leg, and maybe hugging that left leg in towards you, but with a little resistance. So the left leg, that action as the left leg is still pressing out into the strap. The form might be just pulling that leg in closer towards you if that feels good in your body. Breathing wherever you're at. And then go ahead and release the side. You can put the strap over to the side for a moment, knees bent, feet on the ground, just feeling the natural curves of the spine here. And then go ahead and straighten both legs along the ground, knees and toes pointing up to the sky. Again, only if leg straight works for you. If not, feel free to keep the knees bent. Grabbing a block the long ways in between your hands. And if your legs are straight, press both legs down actively. Press both hips down actively. Feel that little arch in the back. But keeping that little arch in the back, let the low ribs settle some towards the ground so your core is engaged too. Stretch your arms up to the ceiling, palms face in towards each other. Again, block long way in between the palms, fingers pointing towards the sky. And then here, exhale, pressing the shoulder blades into the ground, feeling the shoulders on the back with your chin relatively neutral. Inhale, lift the shoulder blades away from the ground, shoulders off the back. Exhale, pressing the shoulders into the ground, shoulder blades on the back. Inhale, lift the shoulders away from the ground, shoulders off the back. Exhale, press the shoulders into the ground, shoulder blades on the back with your shoulders on the back. Inhale, maybe stretch the block up overhead, reaching back for the wall behind you. Again, core engaged. Exhale, stretch the block back up for the ceiling. Inhale, stretching the block overhead, breathing here. Exhale, block back up for the ceiling. Inhale, block overhead, holding here. Press down through the hips, press down through the legs if they're straight, stretching your feet for the front of your mat as you engage your core and stretch your arms, your hands back, the torso back for the wall behind you, breathing here. Nice full body stretch. And then exhale, go ahead and release. You can put the block over to the side for just a moment. Hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. Okay. Come back into center from here, grabbing the block again, this time the block the narrowest way, and hug the block between your upper inner thighs. And then from here, we're going to come all the way over onto our left side. So just coming or whatever side facing towards the video for the first side. And just coming here, you can use your left arm as a pillow. If you want to, you can use the other block as a pillow, or if you're at home and you have an actual pillow nearby, you can use a pillow. Breathing wherever you're at. But just noticing how this feels in your body. Okay. With your next inhale, come back to center. Arms in a T in center. And with your next exhale, lift your feet a little bit off the ground, but feeling the natural curves of the spine. And then just sway your knees a bit from side to side, not coming into deep twisting yet, but just swaying the knees a little side to side here. and noticing what this feels like for you. Okay. And then come back to center from here, lower the feet down, and come all the way to your second side. And just letting the breath flow through you here. And while you're on your side, also maybe make sure your hips, your shoulders, and your head are pretty much in one line with each other. Breathe. With your next inhale, come back to your back. And again, hands back into a T, connecting down to the shoulders of the back of the head, maybe lifting your feet up here. Maybe just letting the knees sway a little side to side again. But if you do want to start to go deeper, you can exhale the knees all the way over to the left side. Inhale to center and exhale the knees all the way to the right. So again, if full twist feels good for you, go ahead. Go a bit from side to side in full twist. If you prefer to just stick with swaying the knees a bit from side to side, just stick with that. Breathing. And so I let my knees go left first. If you did that, then the next time your knees go to the right side, you're done. And instead, you'll roll all the way over onto the first side. But if you need to go one more swish, then go one more swish. Swish. Swish being the official word. Okay, coming back to the left side, but this time you're going to have to engage your head to keep it in line with the rest of the spine, because we're going to take the hands and we're going to point them straight to the sides, palms together, shoulder blades on the back here. And again, lining up hips, shoulders, and head here at first. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lift the right hand up to the sky, and you're not going to take the right hand immediately back behind you. What you're going to do instead is plug the right arm bone into the shoulder socket so the right shoulder starts to come down. And as you do that, you might slide the left arm or start to wiggle the left arm a little bit forward. And again, start to move the right shoulder down towards the ground with the right hand facing towards the sky. It may not come all the way down. That's fine. You're just moving that right shoulder down and then opening the arm only as much as feels good for you. So if your shoulder's not on the ground, then the right hand won't be on the ground either. But if you scoot and wiggle and you can get that right shoulder all the way down, then maybe the right arm opens up all the way down too. But don't force anything. Again, we're easing into practice today. So come to a place that feels good for you and breathe there. And for me, when I moved so I could bring the right shoulder all the way down, that meant my right hip was no longer stacked on top of my left, so that probably was too far for me. Breathe. And then go ahead and come all the way back onto the side and making your way to your second side. So just flipping all the way to your second side. And again, engaging your muscles so your head's in line with the rest of the spine. Line up your hips, your shoulders, and your head. Arms forward, pointing all the way to the side. Breathing here. And then inhale, lift the left arm or the top hand up. And then maybe wiggle the bottom shoulder even more to the side. And then anchoring that top shoulder, in my case the left, towards the ground. Breathing here. And again, trying to keep also the top hip stacked on top of the bottom. And then maybe opening that top arm a little bit. But again, if your shoulder's not down, then the arms probably shouldn't be down either. Breathing just wherever you end up in this twist. And then go ahead and come all the way back over to the side and make your way all the way back to your back. You can put the block over to the side for a moment. Hug the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. And then let go of the knees and draw circles on the ceiling with the knees in one direction, massaging out the hips and the low back a little bit. And then draw circles on the ceiling with the knees in the other direction. And then coming back to hugging those knees into the chest, rocking from side to side. Feel free to stay here, rocking from side to side, or engage your core, lifting the head and shoulders up, and then rocking all the way over onto your side and making your way all the way up to sitting. Just with the legs straight forward out in front of you, knees and toes pointing up to the sky, hands back behind you a bit. Anchoring down to the legs, untuck your hips, open up through the chest, open through the throat, Dandasana variation, breathing here. And then second Dandasana variation, so keep your hips from tucking under, low back lifting up, but maybe walk your hands forward. I like to come to fingertips torso comes a little bit more neutral, so chest is a little bit more neutral, head and neck stacked above the rest of the spine in the second Dandasana variation, breathing here. If your arms still feel short, by the way, so fingertips is still not enough for you, hands on blocks can also really work nicely for Dandasana. So again, doing what works for you in your body. And then from here, what we're going to do, if it works for you, is take both feet over to your left side. So your left hip is lifting up a little bit, right hip is grounded, lift the spine up out of the right hip, and gently twist to the right side. Breathing here. And here, inhale, unwinding back to center, both feet over to the right side. Lifting the low back up out of the left hip and gently turning to the left. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then inhale back to center, come into a cross-legged position with the right leg in front of the left. And if cross-legged on the ground doesn't work too great for you, then also feel super, super free to sit on a block or a bit of height, which can make it more accessible. Breathing here, and I just want you to notice we spent a lot of time not being really active, doing more of a gentle practice. I want you, before we start getting more active, just to notice how you feel after doing a more gentle, sweet practice. Breathing here. And if you want to from here, again, if cross-legged is challenging for you, you might want to just stay here. But if cross-legged is fairly accessible for you, that if you feel pretty good in it, you can bring your hands forward out in front of you and just walk them forward and come into a little forward fold here. And then go ahead and coming back up to center, switching the cross of the legs. So left side forward. And again, feel free just to sit up nice and tall here. Cross-legged is quite a hip opener, actually. And so you can just hang out here playing with it, or if it feels pretty good to bring the hands a little bit forward and walk your hands forward and fold, you can, but make sure your hips and your knees feel fine doing that. So if this forward fold bothers your hips or knees, staying upright more or do something entirely different. So you can always do something different in my classes too, if something is not working for you. And then go ahead and making your way back up. And you can go ahead and come off of something if you decided to sit on something and make your way to all fours on the mat, coming to your hands and knees. Fingers spreading nice and wide apart here. If your palms are flat and lines of the wrist parallel with the front edge of the mat. But if palms flat doesn't work for you, feel free to do fists or other hand positions here. Hands about approximately outer shoulder distance width apart. Then with your next inhale, stretch your spine nice and long. Exhale and round the back and look at your navel. And inhale and arch the back, head and tailbone up to the sky. And we haven't done a lot of just spinal movement yet. So just notice how it feels to move your spine. Notice what it feels like for your back to round and to arch in your body. And also notice what else is happening here. So as your back is rounding and arching, shoulders moving on and off the back, head and hips tilting under and up, inner thigh muscles moving forward and back. Breathe. With your next inhale, go ahead and stretch the spine nice and long. Exhale, lower down to your forearms. Feel free to just stay here. Feel free to have a block between your hands. Feel free to interlace the hands. Make sure that knees are far enough away from you that you can lengthen the spine fully here. And now keeping your hips relatively still, exhale, just soften the upper back, making a little valley between the shoulder blades as you feel the arm bone sliding into the shoulder socket. And then inhale, make a little hill between the shoulder blades as you feel the arm bones sliding out of the shoulder socket. Exhale, valley, arm bones into the shoulder socket. Inhale, hill, arm bones out of the shoulder socket a little bit. Exhale, valley, shoulder blades on the back. Inhale, hill, shoulder blades off the back. Exhale, feel the valley, feel the shoulder blades on the back again here for just a breath or two. Notice what this feels like for you. And then child's pose, if that works for you. So again, if knees bending deeply doesn't work for you, feel free to stay here. But you can also bring your feet together, knees a little bit apart. Let the hips go back towards your feet, head towards the ground. And in child's pose, your back might round a little bit. Your hips might do a slight tuck under. Your shoulders might come off the back a little bit. Sometimes people like to also, though, stretch arms forward and really actively keep shoulders on the back. Decide what works for you right now. Breathe. With your next inhale, ease your way forward onto your belly. Making a pillow for the head with your hands and gently rock your hips a bit from side to side. Coming back into center with the hips, anchoring down to the hips, even between the right and the left side. Stretch back actively through the legs with your knees facing the ground. Maybe so much you lift your feet up at inch or two, maybe not. Keep stretching back actively through the legs. Lower the feet back down. Press your forehead on the back of your hands and inhale, maybe floating up to the elbows here. Breathing, nice, full, deep, complete breaths. With your next exhale, go ahead and lower their elbows back down. Inhale, gaze lifts, hands to either side of the chest, underneath the biceps or the elbows. Keep anchoring down to the hips, stretching long through the legs. With your next inhale, lift up through the shoulders, maybe the chest too. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and lifting up. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and lift up. Hold the lift. Hold the hips relatively stationary, but maybe moving the torso a bit from side to side here. Breathe. And then come back into center from here. And exhale, lower all the way back down, gently rocking the hips from side to side. Okay, come back into center from here. If you remember what hand you had on top the first time, perhaps switch hands just to have even throughness through the shoulders and the hands and the arms. Press your forehead down on your hands again. Press down to your hips again. Lengthen back to the legs again. And again, maybe lift your feet up, but you don't have to. Feet lifted is harder for what we're going to do next. Feet on the ground is a little bit easier. Keep anchoring down to the hips so strongly that the low back doesn't contract on you. And exhale, bend your right knee here. Inhale and straighten. Exhale, bend the left knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the right knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the left knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the right knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale the left knee. Inhale and straighten with your forehead resting on your hands. Inhale, float your elbows up here again, breathing wherever you're at. Legs on the ground are slightly lifted. And then exhale, go ahead and release everything down and make your way back into a child's pose. Okay. With your next inhale, come up to all fours, hands and knees. Exhale, round the back, look at your navel. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long. Exhale, feel the shoulder blades on the back a little bit. And then curl your toes under, nice long spine, downward facing dog, lift the knees up, stretch the hips back. You go ahead and bend the right knee, stretch out to the left leg. And then bending the left knee, stretching out to the right leg, bending and straightening the legs, maybe letting the hips move a bit from side to side. Breathing here. We also haven't done a lot of hamstring stretching yet, so you might notice the hamstrings a bit. And as you're ready, you can look forward at your hands, bend the knees, walk your feet towards the hands, hands towards the feet. Once you can shift all the way back in your feet, go ahead and do so. Hands to the hips, shoulders on the back. Inhale, nice long spine, all the way up to standing. Then once you're up to standing, maybe grabbing those blocks and moving the blocks towards the front of the mat, highest height. Maybe grabbing, if you did like I do, I tend to throw props away when I'm done with them, which is not really helpful. But maybe grabbing the strap and moving the strap someplace where you can grab it easily if you need to. And then taking a moment and lining yourself up near the front of the mat. So taking a moment, lining your feet up with each other, a comfortable distance width apart. Knees facing generally forward, second toes facing generally forward. Knees tracking towards second toes, shifting the weight forward and back in your feet a little bit. And eventually coming to a place where the weight feels centered between the front and the back of your feet, and wiggle your toes. Then with your next inhale, go ahead and lift your toes up. So the arches of the feet lifting up a little bit with your toes here. Exhale, go ahead and release. With your next inhale, curl the toes under, pull the toes back towards the arches of your feet, or towards your heels. Feel the arches of the feet lifting up a lot here. Exhale, release, wiggle your toes again. And then inhale, lift your toes up. If the toes will spread for you, spread the toes apart. Lower the toes back down to the ground. And without curling the toes under, pull the front part of your foot towards the back, lifting those arches up a little bit. Feel the leg muscles hugging to the bone, but the knee joint soft. Feel the muscles around the hips engaging, including pelvic floor muscles lifting in and up. Feel the low ribs engaging, low ribs lifting in and up. Hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Head and neck stacked above the rest of the spine. Feel the breath flowing through you here. And with your next exhale, release the arms to the sides, moving through the shoulders. Inhale, arms come wide and reach up high. Exhale, lower the arms back to the sides, knees as wide apart as your feet. Inhale, bend your knees like you're sitting back in a chair, Utkatasana. Exhale, back up to standing. Inhale, arms come wide and reach up high. Exhale, lower the arms to the sides. Inhale, bend your knees, Utkatasana. Exhale, back up to standing. Inhale, arms come wide, reach up high. Left hand can grab right wrist. Exhale, leaning over to the left side. Inhale, up to center. Right hand can grab left wrist. Exhale to the right side. Inhale, up to center. Left hand, right wrist. Exhale to the left side. Inhale, up to center. Right hand, left wrist. Exhale to the right side. Inhale, up to center. Left hand, right wrist. Exhale to the left side. Inhale up to center, and then one more time, right hand, left wrist, exhale to the right side. Inhale up to center. Exhale, release your hands to your hips. Let the knees be a little bit soft, and take a good size step back with your left foot. Back heel can be up or down, whichever feels better for you. Turn the hips to face generally towards the front of the mat. Right hip pulls a little bit back, left hip a little bit forward, and feel the back of your hips lengthening down a bit here. And then with your right knee tracking towards the second toe, exhale and bending that knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend. Right knee approximately on top of the ankle. With your next inhale, go ahead, stretch the arms forward out in front of you. And exhale, feel the arm bones moving back into the shoulder socket. Feel the low ribs lifting in and up. Breathing here. And then with your inhale, start to lift your arms up. But notice if you run into that shoulder bone. And if you do, stop there for a moment. And for today, if you want to, you can go ahead and open your arms up wider and then bring them up overhead more. So I just want you to notice there is sometimes a bone that you run into there, and just observe it. Breathing here. Warrior One variation, Virabhadrasana 1. Then pressing down to that right foot, step the left foot forward. Hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Just anchoring down from the hips to the feet into the earth, but trying to pull the front of the foot towards the heel a little bit, feeling a light lift through the arches. Then exhale, hands back to your hips, knees a bit soft. Take a nice size step back with your right foot, and again, back heel could be lifted if you prefer. Pulling the right hip a little bit forward, left hip a little bit back. Back of your hips lengthening down. Left knee tracking towards second toe. Exhale and bend. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend. Inhale, arms forward out in front of you. Exhale, arm bones and shoulder socket, low ribs lifting in and up. And then inhale, start to lift the arms up. Notice if you run into a little bit of bone, pause, just observe that for a moment. And then again, if you want to, just open the arms up and bring them a little bit wider to the side. You can do that to reach up to the sky. Or you can keep them where they are. So you can always stop at any point, breathing. And then press down to that left foot, step the right foot forward. Hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Feel the breath moving through you. Exhale, release the arms to the side. With your knees a bit soft, inhale, pivot at the hips, reaching for the blocks out in front of you. And then exhale, back up to standing. So try not to round the back too much. Inhale, pivoting at the hips, reaching for the blocks. Exhale, come back up. Inhale, pivot at the hips, reaching for the blocks. Bringing your hands down to the blocks at maybe the highest height. Feel the thighs and the hips lengthening back. Feel the armpits and the chest stretching forward. And your back might be a little rounded here. And that's okay if it doesn't cause you that much pain. Although you might want to bend your knees if your back's a little bit rounded. And work on extending the spine a bit more. Breathing here. Nice full deep breath wherever here is for you. Again, legs can be bent or straight. And then if it does feel good for you to also round the back, then you can gently let the back round and fold in. Breathing wherever you're at. Flipping your blocks lower or hands to floor. Nice full deep breaths. And then as you're ready, bring your hands to the hip joints. On the back, inhale, nice long spine, all the way up to standing. Go ahead, open the legs nice and wide to the side. Take a minute, line the legs up with each other here, feet up with each other here. And then when you're ready from here, turn your left toes towards the right, turn the right toes all the way out to the right side. And then with your next inhale, go ahead and let your hips turn to the right for a moment. Notice what this feels like for you. Keep that right knee tracking towards the second toe. Open your hips back to the left, but only as much as feels good in your body. Inhale, lengthen the spine out of the hips here. Exhale, leaning into that right hip, noticing how that feels. Inhale, come back up right. right. And then exhale, lean back into the right hip. Inhale, lengthen the spine out of the right hip. Feel free to stay here. Or you can lower the right hand to someplace comfortable on the right leg. And then feel free to stay here, or you can roll the left shoulder on the back, maybe lifting the left hand up to the sky. Trikonasana, triangle pose. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. Press down to the feet, come all the way back up, knees are a little bit soft. Right toes turn towards the left, left toes turn all the way out. Inhale, let your hips turn to the left. Notice what this feels like for you, keeping the left knee pointing towards second toe. Exhale, open your hips back to the right, but only as much as feels good for you. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, leaning into that left hip. Inhale, come all the way back up. Exhale, leaning into the left hip. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long here. Exhale, if you want to, left hand can lower to someplace comfortable on the leg. Press the leg up slightly into the hands and keep a little micro bend in the knee. Maybe roll the right shoulder on the back. Maybe lifting the right hand up to the sky here. Breathing here, wherever here is for you. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. And then as you're ready, press down for the feet, come back up to center, line your feet up with each other here, and maybe just play with heel-toeing the feet even wider apart. How wide apart? Just as wide apart as feels comfortable for you. And then press down through your feet, hug into your hips, lining things up, making sure you're not popping your hips forward, so thighs are settled back over your heels, shoulders over hips, ears over shoulders. Hands can come into a T here, gently shoulders moving toward each other on the back. I like to do this pose a lot in the winter time just in case I hit an ice patch. So I practice engaging the muscles so that if I slip, breathing wherever you're at. And then go ahead, bring your hands back to your hips, heel toe of your feet all the way in towards each other. Shake out the legs and turn and face the front of the mat. Okay, hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Feel the breath moving through you. Exhale, release the hands to the sides. Inhale, arms come wide, reach up high. Exhale, fold forward, hands to legs, blocks or floor. Inhale and lengthen the spine, hands on legs of blocks. Exhale, folding in. And then inhale, bring your hands back to the blocks. So go ahead and grab the blocks again at the highest height. Bend your knees, shift your weight into your right foot, and take a big step back with your left foot. So right knee about on top of the ankle, tracking towards second toe. Hands underneath your shoulders here, so you might have to wiggle where your blocks are or move them. And then maybe sliding that or wiggling that left foot back here. And then from here, just stretch the outer right hip back for the wall behind you. Feel the spine lengthening forward. Feel free to keep the blocks at the highest height, but if you want to flip the blocks lower or bring hands to the floor, you could do that as well. And then keeping the left hand on the ground or the block, right hand to the right knee, turn your belly and chest a bit to the right, and if you want to, the right hand can lift up to the sky. Breathe. And then exhale, go ahead and release. And again, if you did flip the blocks lower, bring hands to the ground, you might want to grab them and flip them up. Press down to the right foot, slide, wiggle, scoot, step the left foot forward. Inhale, stretch the spine long, hands on blocks or the leg. Exhale and fold in. Inhale, lengthen through the spine, maybe grabbing the blocks. Although if hands on the floor is really comfortable for you, you could do that. Shift your weight into your left foot. Big step back with your right foot. Left knee on top of the ankle, tracking towards second toe. Right foot wiggles back. You could keep your right heel down if that works better for you as well. So again, adjusting things as needed. Feeling the outer left hip lengthening back, feeling the spine stretching forward, feeling the breath moving through you. Feel free to keep your blocks high, or if you want to flip them lower, you could. Breathe. And then left hand, you come to the left leg, turning belly and chest to the left if you like. And if you want to, left hand can reach up to the sky. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths here. Okay, if you did take your hands off the blocks for a moment, maybe grab them again, although again, you don't necessarily need them. Lowering the left hand back to the blocks, go ahead, step your way back into a plank pose. So wiggling that left foot back, or if you need to come out of all this entirely and make your way into a plank pose, go ahead and do so. And feel free to have your knees on the ground for plank or lift it. But have your core, your low ribs hugging in really strongly. Not maybe so strongly that the hips tuck under, but really strong core, shoulder blades on the back, head and neck in line with the rest of the spine. Breathing here, notice what this feels like for you. Then exhale, lower the knees down and just come into a child's pose. And you can move the blocks over to the side for now, resting here in child's pose. With your next inhale, ease your way forward onto your belly. Making a pillow for the head with your hands, gently rock your hips a bit from side to side. Coming back into center with your hips. Press down through the hips, stretch long through the legs, feet on the ground. Bring the hands to either side of the chest, hands underneath the biceps or your elbows. Inhale, lifting up a little bit through the shoulders and the chest. Exhale, lowering back down. If you want to go higher, with your next inhale, maybe letting the shoulders lift up a little bit higher, rolling the shoulders gently on the back perhaps as you lift up. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and lifting up. Exhale and lower back down. Rest your head on the hands. Gently rock the hips a little side to side. Come back into center with your hips here, anchoring down to the hips. Open your knees outer hip distance with apart. Knees spinning to face the ground. Exhale, maybe bending both knees here. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bending both knees. Inhale and straighten. Exhale, bending both knees here, holding here, feeling the breath move through you. Then exhale, go ahead and release and make your way back into a child's pose. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. With your next inhale, come up to all fours, hands and knees. Exhale, round the back, look at your navel. Inhale, stretch the spine long, stretch the right leg back behind you. Exhale, the right knee to the nose, rounding the back, hugging in. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long, stretch the right leg back behind you. Exhale, the right foot forward outside the right hand. So if you need to grab the ankle and slide a little, scoot the foot forward, you could do that. If you prefer hands on blocks, you could also grab blocks and have hands on blocks here. So feel free to do that too. Also, feel free to take a moment and pad up the left knee. From here, lengthen the spine nice and long out of the hips. Maybe let your hips move a little side to side here. Then come back into center with the hips, squaring the hips towards the earth here. Heel toe the right foot a little bit towards the left. Bring the right hand up. You might have to adjust your stance to get a little bit more stability. And then bring the left hand up too, hugging in from your feet to your hips. Bring your hands to your hips, level out the hips. Anchor the hips down. And then with your next inhale, go ahead, stretch the arms forward out in front of you again. Shoulders on the back, low ribs lifting in and up. This time, maybe bring the palms all the way towards each other and start to lift the arms up. Stop when you run into your shoulders. So stop when your shoulders tell you to stop here. Breathing here. Feel free to stay here or maybe curl the chest just a little bit towards the sky here. Breathing wherever you're at. And then exhale, lower the hands back down and step the right foot back, all fours. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long. Exhale, round the back, look at your navel. As you inhale, stretch the spine long, stretch the left leg back behind you. Exhale, left knee into the nose, rounding the back. Inhale, stretch the spine long, stretch the left leg back behind you. Exhale, left foot forward outside the left hand, sliding, wiggle, scooting, stepping. Feel free to have your hands up on some blocks. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long out of the hips. Exhale, moving the hips a little side to side here if that feels good for you. Breathing wherever you're at. And then coming back into center with your hips, squaring the hips towards the earth. Heel toe that left foot a little bit towards the right. Left hand can come up. Again, feel free to pad up knees and do other things. When you feel ready, right hand can come up. If you need to adjust, hands to your hips. Hips anchoring down nice and level with each other. Inhale, arms forward out in front of you, hands together, shoulders on back. Lift the low ribs in and up. And then with your next inhale, lifting the arms up. But stop when your shoulders tell you to stop here. And again, only if it feels good for you. If you want to curl the chest a bit towards the sky, breathing here. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then exhale, go ahead and lower the hands back down. Step the left foot back. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long. Exhale, round the back, look at your navel. Inhale, lengthen through the spine, and with a nice long spine, shoulder blades on the back, downward facing dog. Bending and straightening the legs, moving the hips a bit from side to side. Look forward at your hands, bend your knees, walk your feet towards your hands, or the hands towards the feet. Inhale and lengthen the spine nice and long here. Exhale and fold in. Press down to the feet, nice long spine. Arms come wide, reach all the way up towards the sky. Exhale, hands together in front of the heart. Feel the breath moving through you. Exhale, release the hands to the sides. Go ahead, grab your blocks. Blocks at highest height near the front of the mat. So right foot forward in between the blocks, left foot steps back a comfortable distance, turning your hips to face the front of the mat. Inhale and lengthen the spine nice and long, tilting the hips full force. Stop when your back wants to ground. Level out the hips and instead try to stretch the spine nice and long here. And see if you can keep your spine relatively extended and bring your hands to the blocks. So if that works for you, go ahead and do that. And again, relative. So the action is that you're lengthening the spine. The form might be slightly rounded, but if the form becomes deeply rounded, you might need to bend your knees a little bit and play around and see what works for you. So breathing, or keep your hands on your legs is also fine. Breathing wherever you end up, just feeling that outer right hip lengthening back, spine lengthening forward. And again, if you do like to let your back round for just a breath or two, go ahead, let the back round. Notice what that feels like in your body. Breathe. And then nice, strong, steady legs. Hands to the hip, shoulders on the back. Inhale, nice long spine all the way up. Left foot forward, right foot back. Turning the hips to face the front of the mat, level with each other. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, turn the hips fold. Level out the hips again. Again, stretch the spine nice and long. And if you can keep the spine relatively extended and bring hands to blocks, go ahead and do that. But again, if you need to keep your hands on the legs or you don't have blocks, you can keep your hands on the legs. If you need to bend your knee a little bit to keep the spine lengthening, that's fine. And again, if your back is just a little bit rounded, that's also fine. Action is extending. But if your back is deeply rounded or you feel pain, you might want to back out of things some. Breathing wherever you're at. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then with your next exhale, gently let the back round and fold in. If that feels good for you, breathe. We're going to move the blocks with us, so just be careful and be aware of that. You might want to soften your knees and really engage your core, lengthen the spine, and then lifting the blocks up and stepping that right foot forward. Check it out a little bit. And turning and facing the long end on the mat. Blocks will be towards the back of the mat if the long end is the front. And then you'll come to standing in front of the blocks here. Okay. And again, take a moment, line your feet up with each other here. From here, turn the left toes towards the right toes all the way out to the right knee pointing towards your second toe, hips opening back to the left. Trikonasana again. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, lean into this right hip. Lower the right hand wherever's comfortable on the leg. And then with your next exhale, what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn the hips to face the ground. So you're going to let the left hip drop down and turn and face the ground and maybe bring your right hand to the block here. So this is somewhere in between the pose we just did recently and triangle earlier. And so keeping your right hand on the block, if this feels good for you, you'll go ahead and play with stacking the top hip back on top, so the left hip will lift up some, but probably not all the way. So you're intentionally not stacking the left hip all the way on top of the right unless that feels good for you. And then maybe twisting your chest a little bit more towards the sky, towards the left, and then reaching the hand up towards the sky. So a little bit different place to the hips than the first Trikonasana, just so you realize that. So you can do these poses in different ways, and they can all be legitimate ways to do the pose. It's just what feels best in your body. And if all things feel equal, then sometimes cycling through different variations is nice. Press down to the feet. When you're ready, come all the way back up. Right toes turn towards left toes turn all the way out. Left knee tracking towards second toe, hips opening back towards the right. Inhale and lengthen the spine. Exhale, leaning into that left hip. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long again. Left hand to the left leg. Exhale, if you want to, letting that right hip drop down, turning the hips towards the ground. Spine still nice and long. Maybe taking left hand to the block. And then maybe lifting that right hip up a little bit more. Not so it stacks entirely on top of the left, but turning the hips a bit more toward the side again. And then maybe twisting so the chest turns more toward the side. So you're twisting at the upper back. And then maybe the right hand lifts up to the sky. Often it's also talked about how the triangle pose has a spinal twist. And this is one of the reasons why, is because sometimes hips are not entirely stacked in triangle pose. And so the reason it looks like you're facing the side is because you're twisting. Breathe. Press down to the feet, come all the way up. If you want to, you can go ahead and soften your knees a bit, grab both blocks, bring them forward out in front of you. hands to your hips here. And then inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, tilting up the hips full forward. Again, stopping when the back wants to round. Stretch the spine long, hands to blocks. And I like to flip the blocks to the medium height and then walk them forward out in front of me. And walking them way forward out in front with my knees a little bit soft. Shift the weight to the back of the feet. Stretch the thighs and the hips up, back, away from you here. As you press your hands down into the blocks, almost isometrically, or act like you're going to pretend you're going to drag the blocks back towards your feet and lengthen the spine out of the hips. Nice, full, deep breaths here. Feel free to stay in this version of a wide-legged forward fold, or if you want to walk the blocks in, straighten the legs and fold, or do any combination of any of those things, hands to floor or block, whatever works for you, or hands to floor, head on block. Again, whatever feels good for you. Breathe. And then as you're ready, go ahead, lengthen through the spine a bit. Nice, strong, steady legs. Grab the blocks, knees a bit soft. Nice, long spine all the way up to standing. Okay, heel toe the feet in towards each other. Shake out the legs. And turn and face towards the front of the mat. Go ahead, setting the blocks down near the front of the mat too. Lining yourself up. Hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Feel the breath moving through you. Exhale, release the hands to the sides. Inhale, arms come wide, reach up high. Exhale, full forward, hands to legs, blocks or floor. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale and fold. Bend the knees deeply. Shift your weight into your right foot. If you're using blocks, you can move them. Big step back with the left foot. And again, hands could be on floor or on block. Breathing here. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then maybe flip the blocks to a lower height if that works for you. Or hands to ground. And maybe big step back with your right foot. Plank pose. Holding here, core engaged, shoulders on the back, head and neck in line with the rest of the spine. And then from here, we're going to exhale, lower the knees down to the ground, point the toes. Inhale, chest forward, shoulders back, hips forward and down, which can feel nicer with the hands on blocks and on floor if you haven't done this on blocks. Exhale, back up to all fours positionation. Inhale, chest forward, shoulders back, hips forward and down. Exhale, back to all fours. Inhale, chest forward, shoulders back, hips forward and down. Feel free to hold here with the knees on the ground, or maybe press down through your feet and lift your knees up. Breathing wherever you're at, shoulders rolling back a bit. And then exhale, lower the knees down. Inhale to all fours. You might want to move the blocks over to the side for a moment. Exhale, downward facing dog, bending and straightening the legs, bringing the hips a little side to side, getting a lot of length in the low back here. Then with your next exhale, lower down to all fours, hands and knees. Inhale, stretch the right leg back behind you. Exhale, the right foot forward towards your right hand. Sliding, wiggle, scooting. Patting up back knees as needed. And hugging in from your feet to your hips. Inhale, tilting upright, coming upright through the spine. Maybe reaching the arms all the way to the sky. But hands can also be on legs or in front of the heart. And again, if you want, you could do a little baby back bend here. You can curl the chest a bit towards the sky. And then exhale, lower the hands back down to floor or blocks, whatever works for you. Curl the back toes under, lift that back knee up, press strongly through the right foot, slide, wiggle, scoot, step the left foot forward to meet it. Inhale and stretch the spine nice and long. Exhale and fold. Press down through the feet, nice long spine, arms come wide, reach all the way up towards the sky. Exhale, hands together in front of the heart. Feel the breath moving through you. So that was one side of a sun salutation, the other side. Exhale, release the hands to the side. Inhale, arms come wide, reach up high. Exhale and fold forward. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale and fold. Bend the knees deeply. Weight into your left foot. Big step back with the right foot. Breath moving through you here. Nice, full, deep breaths. And again, if you want to use blocks and lower them lower, you could. You also could have hands on the floor. But when you're ready, big step back with the left foot. Plank pose. Feel free to stay in plank like we did the first time, or if you want to do a little push-up here, keeping the core strongly engaged, shoulders on the back. Exhale, you can bend the elbows just an inch or two here. Inhale and straighten. Exhale, bend the elbows just an inch or two. Inhale and straighten. Again, if not, maybe just holding plank, and if plank is not for you, bring the knees down and don't worry about it. Exhale, maybe bend the elbows an inch or two. Inhale and straighten. If you know how to do up dog from flat, the push-up, you could do that, but I kind of recommend just lowering the knees down, pointing the toes,
Chest forward, shoulders back, hips forward and down, breathing here. If you want to press down to the feet and lift the knees up, you can. Nice full deep breaths. And then exhale, lower the knees down. And again, you can move the blocks over to the side, or you can do down dog on blocks if you like to, and come into a downward facing dog. Bending and straightening the legs, moving the hips a little side to side, lengthening out the low back. And then exhale, coming to all fours, hands and knees. Inhale the left leg up, back behind you. Exhale the left foot forward towards the hands. And again, if you're on blocks, sometimes that makes that step forward easier so you can play around with things. Hugging in from your feet to your hips. As you're ready, tilting the hips upright, maybe lifting the hands up. Maybe tiny back bend through the upper back, breathing wherever you're at. Exhale, lowering the hands back down, floor or blocks, whatever works for you, whatever height works for you. Back toes can curl under, back knee can lift up a little bit, and then pressing down to that left foot slide, we will scoot the right foot forward. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale and fold, press down through your feet, nice long spine, arms come wide, reach all the way up towards the sky. Exhale, hands together in front of the heart, feel the breath moving through you. And just take a moment here and notice how you feel. And then exhale, release the hands to the sides. Inhale, arms come wide and reach up high. Exhale and fold. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale and fold. Bend the knees, step back, downward facing dog. Pressing those hips up, back away from you here. Inhale forward into a plank pose, shoulders forward over the wrist. Feel free to lower the knees down or keep them lifted. And then exhale, making your way down to your belly, however works for your shoulders. So you do not have to come down through a push-up. Once you're down on the belly, go ahead, point the toes. Press down to the hips, chest lengthens forward. If you want to lift up, you can. You do not have to. Exhale, lower all the way back down. Prop yourself up on the elbows, elbows underneath the shoulders, shoulders on the back, chest lengthening forward, knees about outer hip distance apart, spinning to face the ground. Anchoring down to the hips here. Exhale and bending both knees. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend, holding the knees bent here. If you want to move the feet around freely, you can. Breathe. And then making your way back into center, resting the head on the hands. Gently rock your hips a bit from side to side. And then letting the hips come into center, anchoring down to the hips. Bending the knees perhaps again if that feels good for you. Arms along the side, fingers pointing towards the toes. Inhale, lifting up to the shoulders and the chest here. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and lifting up. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and lift up. Hold the lift, breathing here. If you want to, you can grab your ankles or your feet with your hands if that feels good for you, but don't feel like you have to. If you want to, you can kick the feet into your hands. And if you want to, you can lift your knees up a little bit. Dhanurasana, bow pose. Again, however feels like it works in your body. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Rest the head on the hands. Gently rock your hips a bit from side to side here. Coming back into center and making your way back into a child's pose. Breathe. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. Okay. With your next inhale, come up to sitting with the right leg straight forward down in front of you, knee and toe pointing up to the sky. Hug the left knee into the chest, sitting up nice and tall here, lifting the lower back up out of the hips. Right arm across the leg, left hand back behind you, twisting to the left. And if you want, you can cross the right arm over the left leg. Breathing here. And then inhale, go ahead, unwind. Open the left leg to the left side. And if your knee's hovering really high, feel always free to slide something underneath that knee. Grabbing your strap, taking the strap, looping it around the ball of your right foot. And then pull back on the strap to help you sit up nice and tall. So you're just trying to untuck your hips here and lift the low back up out of the hips as you press the ball of the foot, the ball of your foot's between your arch and your toes, out into the strap, and seeing if that works for you. If this doesn't work for you, maybe bend your knees a little bit, maybe sit on some height, a block again, play around, see if you can get the hips to not tuck under so much. And then from here, you can start to bend your elbows a bit to the side. Try to keep your spine extending at first as you fold forward, and then maybe give yourself less strap, or maybe pulling the elbows a little bit forward with the shoulder blades on the back, and then just gently starting to fold in. So eventually your back will start to round, but the action is still a bit of an extension. So the action is you're still finding a little bit of space. Breathe. And then inhale, come all the way back up. And second side, so lifting the left knee up, straightening the left leg, bending the right knee. Sitting up nice and tall here, lifting the low back up out of the hips, left arm across the leg, right hand back behind you, twisting. And then if you want to, the left arm can cross over, breathing wherever you're at. Nice, full, deep, complete breaths. And then with your next inhale, unwind, let the right leg open to the right. Feel free to put something underneath that leg if it feels like it needs or wants support. You can loop the strap around the ball of your left foot. And pulling back on the strap to try to untuck your hips and sit up nice and tall. But you still might need to bend your knee. You might need to sit on something. And as much as possible, just untucking your hips. If your hips have a hard time not tucking under, then I actually recommend just practicing sitting up nice and tall and not moving any further forward. But if your hips can move here, and you can tilt the hips so the tailbone's a little bit back behind you, so the front of the hips a little closer to the thighs, you can do that. And then from here, you might take a little bit more strap, so you might make let your hands come closer to the feet. You might start to, with your shoulders gently on the back, open your elbows wide and pull your elbows forward. And what that does is if your shoulders are on the back, the shoulders will pull the chest forward, and you can fold forward here. Breathe. And then inhale, come back up. Go ahead, looping the strap around both balls of the feet. Pulling back on the strap, sitting up nice and tall here. And again, feel free to stay sitting up nice and tall. Feel free to move your hips a bit, and your knees might need to be bent. That's fine. And then if you can, tilt the hips, tilt the hips. I sometimes also walk the hips back a little bit, so you can walk your hips back a little bit. And then inhale, try to stretch the spine nice and long out of the hips, using the strap for resistance. And then exhale, keep some of that length, but maybe fold a little bit forward. But breathing wherever you're at. Inhale, come back up. Put the strap over to the side, grab blocks. Go ahead, bring the blocks back behind you a bit. Legs and knees pointing up to the sky, anchor down through the legs, untuck through your hips, lift up through the low back, open through the chest, open through the throat. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. Feel free to stay here, or releasing that, bend your knees, soles of the feet on the ground. And then from here, inhale, maybe stretching your knees forward, floating the hips up a little bit. Exhale and lowering back down, only if this works for your shoulders. Inhale and lift up. The blocks do take a little bit of the pressure off the shoulders. Exhale and lower down. So you can also do this with hands on the ground. It's actually a little bit harder typically. Inhale, stretch your knees forward, lift the hips up. You can hold here, breathe here. And then exhale, go ahead and lower back down. And again, feel free to repeat that, or feel free to come back into this. Or maybe, because like I said, the blocks take a little bit of the pressure off. So this is actually easier than with hands on the ground, although you could do this with hands on the ground as well. Maybe with your hands on the blocks at medium height, Your shoulders on the back, toes pointed, start to lift up through the chest here, and see what it feels like to press down through your heels and lift the hips up here. But again, only if this works for you, and if you've never tried it with blocks make it a little bit easier. Not a lot easier, a little bit. Breathe for a lot of people, not for everyone. Go ahead and lower it back down, and then putting the blocks over to the side, you can ease your way onto your back, however is comfortable for you. Hugging the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. And then letting go of the knees and just drawing circles on the ceiling with the knees, massaging out the hips and the low back a little bit in one direction. And then just drawing circles on the ceiling with the knees in the other direction, breathing here. Coming back into center and lower the feet to the ground about hip distance width apart. Arms along the sides, arms straight, palms facing down, fingers pointing towards the toes. Feel the natural curves of the spine, hips heavy, low back a little bit lifted, shoulders heavy, neck a little bit lifted, back of your head nice and heavy. Inhale the shoulders up towards the ears. Exhale, wiggle the shoulders towards each other on the back, lifting the spine in between the shoulders up, feeling your chest lift up a little bit here. Feel free to stay here, pressing down through the feet. Inhale, stretching the knees forward, letting the hips float up. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale, stretching your knees forward, letting the hips float up. Exhale, lower back down. Inhale, stretch your knees forward, let the hips float up, perhaps holding here. Press down through your hands, maybe wiggle the shoulders closer towards you. Maybe lift the spine in between the shoulders up a little bit more. Stretching the hips and the knees towards the front. Maybe stretch your chest for the back. Bridge pose, nice full deep breaths. And then if you did keep your hips lifted, lower the hips back down. Hands to the thighs, press the thighs away from you. Lengthening out to the spine, gently swaying the knees a bit from side to side. And then coming back into center from here. From here, hugging the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. And then coming back into center from here. You can open your hands into a T position if that feels good for you, or airplane if it doesn't. Shoulders and back of the head anchoring down, and we'll just do some twisting. So feel free to bring the feet down for a gentler twist, or keep the feet lifted for a little deeper twist. Also, if your sacrum tends to bother you, someone twisting, but you'd like to, then squeezing a block in between the thighs can be a really helpful adjustment to do here. When you're ready, exhale, the knees could go over to the left side. Inhale, up to center. Exhale, the knees to the right side. Inhale, up to center. Exhale, the knees to the left side, perhaps holding the legs on the left side. Right shoulder nice and heavy or moving towards the ground, and maybe turning the gaze and looking over the right shoulder, breathing here. And then as you feel ready, inhale and winding back to center. Exhale the knees over to the right side. Left shoulder nice and heavy. Maybe turning your gaze and looking over the left shoulder, breathing here. And then as you're ready, coming back into center, hugging the knees into the chest, coming into a ball, gently rocking. Feel free to stay in a ball or opening the knees wider apart, lengthening through the spine a bit, still rocking. Maybe acting like you're going to pull the knees towards the ground on either side of the torso. Maybe flipping the feet up to the sky, holding on to the back of the knees, the lower legs, or your feet as you rock from side to side here. Happy baby pose. Eventually unwinding into center and full body stretch. With the arms up above the head, legs along the ground. Lengthen the back of your hips towards your feet.
And then final relaxation. So arms by the sides, palms facing up if you're doing Shavasana, if Shavasana works for you. Legs can open wider apart than the hips, back of your hips lengthening towards your feet, relaxing here. But if this does not work for you, any position, the spine is relatively neutral and supported. So feel free to bend your knees, have the feet on the ground, or feet together, knees apart, perhaps with blocks under you again. But any place that feels comfortable, that you can relax into, the spine is relatively neutral and supported. Once you find that place, let the eyes be soft or closed. And just feel the breath moving through you. And just with every exhale, let yourself release out a little bit more. Let the bones feel heavy. Let the skin feel soft. And whenever you're as relaxed as you're going to get, just let go of the conscious awareness of the breath and just let yourself rest here. Letting yourself release back into the darkness. Letting yourself feel supported by the earth underneath you. And just letting go a bit here.
small movements, wiggling fingers and toes, circling ankles and wrists, stretching arms and legs. Then when you feel ready, you can hug the knees into the chest, gently rocking a little bit if that feels good for you. Traditionally, you'd roll onto the right side. You can do that as well if that works in your body. If not, feel free to leave it out or to go left or do what works for you. But wherever you're at, feel nice and supported by the earth underneath you. Feel the breath moving through you. And then as you feel ready, moving slowly, you're going to ease your way to a comfortable sitting position. Keeping that connection to the breath. We will finish class with the Om. But also remember, after the Om, you don't have to immediately go to the next thing, hopefully. But even if you do, trying to keep a little bit of this with you. So trying maybe not to move so quickly, letting transitions occur at their own pace, much like the time between the solstice and the equinox is the amount of time for the light to come back. We will end with an Om. Hands together in front of the heart. Exhaling. Inhale deeply. Thank you so much for coming. How was that?
That was great. Got
Good.
into a lot of good stuck spaces.
Good. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Have a good holiday.
Yeah, you know that the studio's closed next week. I did say that. Yeah, okay. So Happy New Year. Have a great holiday. Bye-bye.
See you on the other side.
Yeah, see you out in 2022.